Let's kick it. All right, friends. Welcome back to this series called No Other Life, and particularly this season of New Beginnings. You've tuned in to the podcast here for 11 episodes. This is the 12th, and wouldn't you know, I began on the autumnal equinox, and here we are into the late December. We have reached the conclusion of the season of New Beginnings, and just like all of your favorite television dramas and situational comedies, I am going to now be taking a bit of a hiatus as I begin to prepare the material for what I hope will be an exciting season 2, where I hope to find all of you returning and more new subscribers. In the meantime, I'll still be on social media, and you'll find me there. Well, this is going to be an episode about holiday gatherings. And I was thinking it would be nice to tie everything back together after all the vocabulary that we started out with in September. And we've really come through a lot here. And I started to think about holidays and ways that I could put these things all together. And boy, did holiday gatherings immediately come to the forefront of my mind, because the thing about holiday gatherings is that people from all walks of life, people going through all sorts of things in their respective lives, all come together in one room at one time for one purpose. Or do they? Have you ever thought when you've entered into a holiday gathering, oh, this is interesting, I'm here for fun. Oh, but that person over there seems like they're in it for revenge. And that one might be looking for some money, I'm not sure. And that one doesn't want to be here at all, and so on. So I thought, well, each one of those people is going through some kind of a change. Just in the last episode, we were talking a lot about the ways in which each of us is going through many different periods right now that are coming from a remarkable stimulus that allowed it to become a catalyst that made them start thinking in a way that was called an adjustment or period of discernment, all leading toward a new beginning. And I said at that point in time that you could strike out the antecedent period and the new beginning period that follows, because that's just life. That's what we're living in. So it's not really a focal point for this philosophy. However, at a time like this, when we're talking about holiday gatherings, we're going to be seeing a mix of people in all those different stages. And that's going to get very interesting, very dynamic there around your dinner table. And the reason for that is because I've talked about these different buckets of your life where you might be just moving into a new home. So for the moment, you're settled in home. But at the same time, you're thinking about changing a job. Maybe that mortgage is a little bit of a stretch, so you want to figure something else out. And maybe the people you chose to move into this home with are not the ones that you really wish you were with. And so all of these different categories, the home, the job, the relationships, those are all things that you are going to find ebbing and flowing throughout your life. And that's great for you, and it gets a little more complex if you happen to have a great number of people in your life whom you hold dear. But at a holiday gathering, You're going to find people who have just moved into a home and are satisfied. Some who have just left a home very unsatisfied. Some who are trying to get out of their parents' home. And you get the idea. So all of those buckets, those categories that we might think of linearly, different categories stacked up as each other. I'm kind of thinking like as a Gantt chart, different projects and so on. We're in different phases of each and every one of the categories' respective projects. But everyone around that table with us is in their own respective parts of each category. And that's going to get interesting. So I started to think about that. And then I realized, gosh, I need to ask the simpler question first, taking my own medicine, right? You need to ask the simplest questions in order to be able to get to the harder questions to answer the more complex ones with complex answers, so on. So what I came to was holiday gathering is more than the gathering. It's the holiday as well, and that is fraught. So I had to start thinking, well, what is it when you take these two words apart? Because as you've seen elsewhere, I love to think about these phrases of 2 or 3 words, and we lump them all together and say, oh, holiday gatherings. Yeah, that's an entity. That's a thing. And it sure is. But it's also holiday and gathering. And those two things play together to make the delicious and at times fraught adventure that we do call a holiday gathering. So what is it about holidays? Why are they making this even trickier? It's very simple when you ask the simple questions and eventually get to the fact that holidays are prescribed. If you're going to have a family reunion and you want to do it in the summer, what's the first thing you're going to do? Find out, do people want to have this gathering? And let's say they do. So then what's the second thing you do? You know it. You try to find out when and where should we do it. And you might pick a state park or some country club or one of your homes. That's great. Let's get that out of the way. But now you have to figure out when. And you could do this through a variety of means available to us in this technological world. Probably a text thread that's going to get cumbersome, or maybe an email chain likewise. Or you might be using some kind of a polling tool. Whatever the case, you're going to quickly find out that this one works in July, but this person doesn't want to come at the end of June, and this person can only do Mondays and Fridays. And eventually you will settle on a time that works for everybody. Now strike everything from that pleasant experience and enter holidays. Holidays are holidays because they are holy days. And if you look at them in that way, you could say, well, these are sacred. They have to happen on a certain day at a certain time. And some of these are granted a little bit of dispensation where they get to be considered an entire season. So let's say right now we're coming upon the end of autumn, as I said. And so throughout December, you could have something called a year-end party, a holiday party, a Christmas party, a winter party, and everyone would be happy. Much shorter, but also kind of a season, if you will. We'll say the American birthday, 4th of July. Here in the United States, it's July 4th. Everyone knows that. But you could have a 4th of July picnic on July 2nd, and nobody would care. It would still be the same thing because even though that has a date with a number in it, in its title, we accept it as being a bit variable. Now, the biggest events are going to happen on the 4th, but you could go to 3 or 4 back-to-back outdoor cookouts, picnics, whatever, throughout that entire week even, and you would still think they all kind of counted. Then enter in something like Christmas morning or Thanksgiving or New Year's brunch. These all are required to happen on a particular day at a particular time and through tradition, probably in a particular place, which is probably going to be someone's home, and which chances are, if you work the statistics on this, probably not your own home. And that's interesting to think about because every home often will have others coming to it. And if just 2 different pods of people, to use a term from our recent history, enter into your space, they're not hosting their own. So, statistically speaking, you're probably doing some sort of traveling on these days. And that's tough. That is tough because kind of by definition, but certainly by tradition, your pod is the people whom you hold most dear. And you probably live with them, or at least see them super frequently if they live in their own space. And so you travel all together and you show up somewhere. And some other pod has shown up as well, and another, and another. And what we end up with, friends, is a soup of people in all walks of life, many of whom are feeling a little less good about being there. Some people that want to brag about what they've been doing this year. Some others who are so timid and not thrilled with what they've been doing this year that they're trying to fall into the background. And you get the picture. So what do we do about it? If we know that holidays are fraught, and if we know that gatherings are complex, there are some things we can do. And I'm not here to give you individual advice tailored to your untailored life with respect to mine, because I don't even know who you are listening to this. But I will tell you a few things that we can think about. I mentioned last week that stimuli are those things that pop up into our lives, and they can come to us clearly out of the sky. It's just an idea that comes to your head if your mood is right, and all these other things come into being, but probably more often, these stimuli are coming at you rapidly throughout the day. And you know exactly where you find them. I used an analogy last time about driving home from work or school, the grocery store, wherever. And depending on what your mood is, you may notice so many stimuli on the way home that you feel like you get home with a task list that's twice as long as it had been. You think you're going to the grocery store to get things done, but instead you're coming home with all these ideas that came to you, whether internally or externally on that trip. And wow, that can be taxing, to say the least. However, I will say that you also can be in a situation mentioned in that same episode where you come home and you say, what happened? I don't remember anything. And we came to the realization that you probably had just had a journey full of unremarkable stimuli. And what that means is that you came home without incident and you were able to start making dinner or studying, or you go straight to bed. These are the situation is without these incomplete tasks. Wow, hard to get through that weird amount of words. Anyhow, so you might think that you have no control at a time like the holiday season or your busiest period at your job or your nonprofit that you might be volunteering with, any of those. But at those times, you might be able to control the number of stimuli that you experience. And you can think yourself about how that is in your own life. But the way that you will come to that conclusion of what you might need to rein in a little bit is simply by looking at your average day. You can look in retrospect or you can try to do it in real time. But what you're going to want to do is think about what it is that you go through on an average day. Where are the spikes in stimuli? Do you find them on the way home? Do you find them when you're eating dinner with a loved one, or social media, or the newspaper? Wherever it is, that might be something that you try to pull back a little bit on. Probably not the time with loved ones and so on. But if you always find that any one of those other things is giving you too much to think about, see what you can do about reducing it. Just a thought. Now, the other thing that I'm going to talk about for a moment is what we call stress. And it has other words that end in ED or FUL. But just bringing up that S word just made you feel a little worse. And I'm not here to do that. Instead, what I'd like to offer you at the times that you start to think about that S word is that we've been using the analogy throughout this season about standing on a plank that's balanced on a fulcrum of some kind, a barrel, who knows. And I've used that for so many different things, where the plank is time from oldest to most in the future, or I've done it several different ways. But the way that I'm going to do it right now is literally like a balance of a teeter-totter, seesaw, or an old scale. Our lives seek our balance. And I mention that specifically with saying our balance because each one of us is different. You may know someone who seems to thrive at times of emergent situations. And you remember an emergent situation is those in which the stimulus immediately becomes a catalyst that immediately forces a new beginning. And some people are so good at that they seek vocations and even in some ways personal lives that really depend on that snap action. And I don't mean that in any negative way. If you think about an athlete, what are they doing? They are making these snap decisions. And again, we have a lot of macro talk in here, but you could also think in the micro. It is a new beginning for an athlete to realize that this player just fell down, and so they're going to be able to go a different route to do the thing where they get the stuff into the place where it needs to be. And that's literally an emergent situation on that playing field or court or diamond or wherever you like to play your sports and hobbies. So everything that we talk about in this space can be macro or micro. And so those people who are good at snap decisions might thrive at times that are very different than you. So that's why I say we seek our balance. And what that further to that point, what that means is that we feel less good when we are in a time where our lives are out of balance, or we perceive that an impending imbalance is afoot. And that's where we get the S word. That's where people start to feel drained or overwhelmed, or I've been told as a vocal performer that feeling you get when you step out on stage, it's the same feeling internally or biomechanically or something that can make you have horrible stage fright, or love it so much that you go out and just slay your performance. And it's really helpful to think in those terms, that any one of these stimuli can be looked at as either end of that plank on a balance. So think about that as well. When you're feeling stressed, kind of lean into it. Think differently. How do I feel right now? Where do I think I'm going with this? Can I flip it and feel completely different, but with the same stimuli coming at me? That one is pretty hard to do. It's not easy to turn on a dime, but you can probably pull it off at some points and then probably get more proficient at it. So when you're coming up to your holiday gatherings this year and for the future, think about the people who you are with. Think of the people who you are going to see. I have long said that, what have I long said? I lost my train of thought. Man, that does not look smooth. Oh man. Wow. Some 40 seconds later. All right. I have said from the start that my goal here is to be as true, as honest as possible, and sometimes people just mess up. So I left all of that pondering in, but I did take out about a half a minute of you having to wonder, if you're listening, did this file just cut off? And if you're watching, just see me scratching my chin as I tried to remember this nugget. When you go to one of these get-togethers, remember that the whole point is to try to help others. That's all that it is. And if you follow golden rules and platinum rules of treating people as you want to be treated, or perhaps more deliciously, to treat them as they want to be treated, then it's really, how are you helping? Are you not helping? If you're not helping, figure out a way to help. It's that easy. And so go to these places. Don't look for provocation. You don't need to do that. If you're going to a place where you haven't seen people for a long time, that's not the time to have these heated moments. The time for those is alone, after the fact, or 6 months later, or 3 months later. Don't wait every 12 months to stir up old nonsense. It's just not going to happen to do it that way. So think of that first and foremost, and then I would say, be nice. Think about the old times. Think about the fun. Be appreciative of everyone there. Make sure that you tell every single person in this space something that makes you happy about them, about the relationship you've had. If you've just met them, tell them, I hope we see each other again. You can set the tone for the gathering. If everybody comes with the attitude of the person who is least happy to be there, it's going to be a rough day. But if you come in and set the tone so that everybody will pick up on your signals and live with you in that moment, you're going to wish that you had a reunion scheduled a month later and 2 months and so on. If you don't, and you take the lead of the wrong person, you're going to live a life where for 11 months you don't think about any of these people, and then for a month minus 1 day, you dread going to see them. But you don't want that. You don't want any of that because you are trying to live with no other life, right? Not the smoothest outro this time. I was trying to figure out whether to incorporate this or just put it as a bumper at the end, and I chose bumper. So like I said at the beginning, I am going to be going away now for a while. I'll still be posting on social media when and as I wish I can. It's not my best day with words here, but I will be back for another season, and it's already formulating in my mind. I'm excited about the content. Now I just need to put it together and figure out how to chunk it all into nice bite-sized episodes for you. So until next time, friends, take care of yourself because you have no other life. Bye now.